Can you hit the fence?
Can I chime in and say, I find being a standby, I find cover work so stressful. I don't miss that excitement, the heart pounding, I like to know I'm gonna go on, the stories are always so good. Like this story you just told of like, I know you're thinking the last thing that's gonna happen is that you're gonna go on when a fresh singer is already on. Why in the world? What are the chances? But there's so much stress involved in it. I think honestly, you guys, I'm currently in North Carolina. I left New York a few months ago to kind of get a different lifestyle. I was planning on moving before, and then when quarantine hit, I was like, oh, I really need to make it happen. And so I moved, and I personally wanted a slower life. And then I found myself still, busying myself, doing a lot of stuff, of course, wanting to still continue to be in the business. But one of the things I would say that's most striking about this role in particular that all of us have played is the stress level. I think some of it isn't even necessarily because it's that hard to sing. Like it is hard to sing, right? But more than that is like there's these crazy expectations for some reason. Like there's so much of a mystique that goes around performing these songs. And so I swear, I bet all of you can sing all these songs just fine in your bathroom, in your shower. But then when you're about to do it in front of 2,000 people, you're like, ooh, oh, you know what I mean? Like you, and I'm not saying that not saying that it's an easy track, but it's just the expectations of it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the costumes and the makeup and the long, luxurious hair and the lighting and all the special effects. And so all of that makes people feel so excited to see Elphaba flying in the air or, sinking in the ground or, whatever. And, I think all of that put all together puts all this pressure and makes for such a magical, mystical role to where to this day, many of us, it's been years for a lot of us, but people still have an interest in it because of all the magic and mystery that's surrounds performing this part.
I have a funny story actually about that. So my cousin Jen, who is a big theater person, she's currently she's one of the attendees right now. She was talking about Wicked, and so my sister was a Girl Scout, and she was doing some award thing with Wicked. So she went to the Gersh, which was on stage. She had to present her award, her like presentation there. So we were there for that, and then we were seeing it that night. And she was always talking about, oh well, she's like, Elphaba flies at the end. She just goes up and everything. Rossiali was Elphaba. Katie Rose Clark was Glinda. Rossioli, thank you. Katie Rose Clark was Glinda. We get to there, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is so cool. And then nothing. The lift didn't go up. And she didn't. So my first Broadway show, first time seeing Wicked, and I was like, I thought it would be different than this. But Dee then like came out with like killer vocals, and I remember because now her and I think we're friends. I would consider us friends. And I literally told her that, and she was like, how are you there? Like one of like my 4 no-fly shows. How are you there for that? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, then I saw it on tour like years later, and the fly worked. And then I saw it again on Broadway with Brittany Johnson, Glinda, and it worked then. So, but it's one of those things where I was like, awesome, this is a story I can tell.
Well, I'm really glad that you were not tainted by it, and that you came back to see it. To speak to what Saycon said, yes, I think there is so much pressure to play those 2 roles, especially, and Saycon and I were actually started the show relatively around the same time in 2 different companies, and even then, when it was only a couple of years old. It had fans had such a great ownership of it. And You know, if like little old lady me can just say, like, that was back in the day when the internet was, you know, starting to get revved up, right? You know, and people had cell phones, you know, with cameras, and then this little thing called chat rooms started happening, and like the Broadway boards started happening, and like that became a major thing. Like my first year.
The boards.
The boards, right? And I had no idea what these things were. I'd never visited them before. And one day, Jenna Lee Green, God bless her, like came up to me and was like, did you see what a fan said about you, you know, on like, at your performance? And it was actually a positive thing. Like the first one that I saw was, I was like, oh, they love me. They really love me. What? I did a great job. Yay. Right. But they don't always, right? And so then I got addicted to that, and very quickly found out that they don't always love you. And as a matter of fact, when they don't love you, they hate your guts and they wish you would die. And I literally had people say, like, she should just die. I can sing this role better in my shower. And I was like, oh my God, you know, just feeling horrible. So there is all of this, and, you know, granted, I've met a lot of really lovely fans who are really wonderful and so gracious, and just like I was really disappointed at first when, you know, so-and-so wasn't there, but you did a wonderful job, and they were just really nice, but not always. So yeah, definitely a lot of pressure.
My favorite mean social media comment was somebody, there was a bootleg of me at some point, and somebody wrote "flat as a pancake," and I was like, that's hysterical. That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. But it's flat as a, how would you like that? Flat as a pancake. But
just rude.
I honestly, though, it was rude, but it was so funny and so well crafted that I was like, maybe I was. But you know, it's interesting, even, you know, having been in the show now, most recently, I guess, I mean, I finished in 2020. I mean, when I joined the company and I was going into the Pantages stage door for rehearsal, and there were people on the street that stopped me and they were like, Sarah, you're joining the show. And I was like, I haven't even told my friends I joined the show yet. How do you know me? How do you know I joined the show? Like, it just, this internet thing of like, I mean, people knew that I was going on maybe before I knew I was going on, and it was on the Reddit boards and this and that, and it's crazy. It's like there's all this pressure, and then they make the videos of everybody singing all the things over and over again, and they compare, and it's just like, it is certainly wild. But there are many amazing, wonderful people that make you feel like a rock star after you go on, especially as an understudy. And I've had so many great experiences with that, but flat as a pancake is too funny not to share. So that's all I have to say.
Because that actually leads into my next question. Did any of you guys like face, because I know I did some research about this, and I know I've always seen like somewhere people have like backlashed against like who has played Elphaba, specifically when it comes to their looks. And I know I read stuff online, like specifically, I believe it was when Saycon, you were cast, there was a lot of stuff in those chat rooms and stuff. They're like, why is a Black woman playing Elphaba? And I'm like, she's green. I'm like, who cares? I was like, she has to be able to sing her face off and act this role. I was like, those are the only two requirements.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You know, when the boards had kind of first started, I like, seriously, like in the year 2000, I was Mimi on the national tour of Rent. And I was a thick little chocolate Mimi, and all the other Mimis were like super, super tiny and looked nothing like me. And I remember seeing somebody call me a werewolf or something, and I was like, not gonna be reading these anymore. Like, so I didn't read any of that stuff. By the time 4 or 5 years later, I'm going into Wicked, I didn't read any of that stuff. So I had no idea that any of that stuff was going on. Sometimes, you know, honestly, ignorance is bliss. You know, let the people argue amongst themselves, and, you know, because, you know, when you're in that moment working on your vocal or getting your makeup done or whatever you're doing, you're certainly not thinking about, or you shouldn't be, you know, it's pretty best not to be thinking about some bad thing that someone said about you, you know. I've experienced a lot of random crazy criticisms, and I think that is, when you ladies say, that's one of the non-sweet parts, you know, of doing a show like Wicked or any other, honestly, any other Broadway show. Dan'yelle, this is listening as I was driving, I was listening to you say this was your first show, like professional role. I had no idea. And I've seen the bootlegs of you. I've heard your vocals like killing it on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, and
thank you.
Yeah, just to imagine that this was to have all of this pressure for your first professional show, to be in the ensemble and then have to come out of the ensemble and carry the show, like, you know what I mean? I had no idea, you know, all that those kinds of things affect our, you know, I always like to bring up the wellness. Wellness is a big thing that I'm into. I'm always thinking about wellness. And again, in a pre-COVID world, I was always concerned about wellness for performers, for entertainers, for actors, because we are expected to, you know, put on a sunny face whenever, you know, we bring light and sunshine and happiness to people with our performances. And when you have all this pressure on your back, and just like everybody else, you had to get up and brush your teeth in the morning, or, you know, if you found out, I remember when I was doing, I did Motown the musical, and my grandmother passed away while I was doing Motown the musical. And I'm like having this amazing experience on one hand, but then like mourning on the other. You experience everything else that everybody else experiences, but you're expected to be on the, you know, you're expected to be on the, you know, just on the block smiling, you know, and so I'm always advocating for wellness for entertainers. So anybody who's in the chat or who's watching who really wants or is thinking about becoming a performer, you know, I always advise you to think of other things that you can do. You know, you may have your dream role to be Elphaba, but what other things do you enjoy in life? Do you enjoy gardening? Do you enjoy giving haircuts? Do you enjoy knitting? Do you love dogs? You know, whatever, like find other things that bring you happiness, because if you let your soul happiness depend on your career as an entertainer, then with all the commentary and the boards, whether it's boards in 2000 or Reddit in 2020, you know, all that stuff will eat away at you and not allow you to have a happy, joyful life. It's hard enough because we go from job to job. I'm sure as entertainers, we have, at the end of the year, we file so many, you know, W-2s and 1099s. When we're doing our taxes, you know, we're not just like, oh, we worked at the same place the whole year and we just, you know, everything is just so complicated. So the least we can do is like really take time to care for ourselves as much as we can, you know. I always go off on a wellness tangent somehow.
I love that you said that, Saycon, because I am all about that as well. Like I've not stepped away from the industry. The industry is shut down. So there you have it. So, you know, having something else is so important, especially as an artist, a performance artist, because there is a lot of stuff out there. And I personally don't read critiques or, you know, those reviews and things, because I don't want to read what somebody else's opinion is of me and my performance and what I'm bringing to the table, because I'm up there, you're not. So I always think about it that way. But yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Wellness is my thing too. I teach yoga and into meditation, and like that is what I've been focusing on offering to the community, my community, other communities. It's just, not to go off topic, but so important to find something else, because you have to have that balance.
No, that's wonderful. I will say I do read reviews. I don't want to act like I just don't care what people think, because I read reviews and I read YouTube comments, but yeah, it's important to not like focus on that stuff.